Welcome to Lindamood-Bell Radio. I'm Dave Hungerford for Lindamood-Bell, letting you know that Lindamood-Bell Learning Center instruction for reading, comprehension, and math helps students catch up or get ahead in learning. Our one-to-one customized learning plans are designed to help children feel more confident and prepared for school. Instruction is available live, online, and in person. Learn more at lindamoodbell.com. Today's podcast is two conversations I recently had with Phillip and Sruti, colleagues from the Portland, Oregon Lindamood-Bell Learning Center. Here it is.
I'm Phillip. I'm the Associate Center Director in Portland. From Portland originally. My background is actually in theater, in high school and college. I was a theater major in college as well as sociology. So that was my educational background. After college, I worked for 10 years in residential support for adults with developmental disabilities. That was just what I got into after college. And eventually, I liked that, but I eventually kind of had enough of that and was basically just looking for jobs. And I found an ad on Craigslist, to be a tutor, and I thought, hey, I could do that. I thought about working with kids for a while. I'd done a little bit of tutoring in school, just with peers and a little bit with kids, and I was really sort of ready for a change anyway. And I went there. I got the call to come in for a screening, and that's sort of the rest is history. I came in and.
What was that? I know that the training, the initial training, is kind of daunting, or at least it used to be a long time ago.
It's a lot of information. You sit, 2 weeks there's interaction with the people you're training with. There's a trainer, and there's a big Zoom video conference where a lot of the information's coming through, and it's kind of sitting there doing a little practice. But it's, you get to the end of the training, and it's like, wow, what's all this information? Then you have to put it into practice, and it can be a little intimidating for maybe a day or two for me anyways. It was like, I go there, but then you're really well supported. I go out in the first session I'm with the student, there's somebody sitting right there who's there to support me and give feedback, and just, it really, eases, I felt really eased in pretty well. At that time we were a pretty small learning center, so it wasn't like, it wasn't hitting the 40-hour week. It was, we had a few students, a few days. I was really able to ease into it because of, we were a bit smaller back then. But
was it at this site?
Yeah, it was here. This was 2017, and so we were still a satellite back then. We were, not even our own full learning center.
What were some of when you first started, some of the challenges that you faced with students? What was it behavior? Was it programs? Was it something else?
I think that behavior is a challenge, just engagement, because we work with a lot of students who, number one, are here doing something that's it's difficult for them. People don't come to us because reading's easy. So when you're working with a younger population, especially, who they don't always necessarily have that 100% buy-in. Like, they're not always here because they want to do it. They're here because their parents send them here. So there can be a little, that can be hard, but, I found that, just really, one-on-one is amazing. You really get to know the student. You get sort of challenged to find ways to engage them, to bring them into the session. Let's continue doing this work, but let's make it fun. Let's, take brain breaks or whatever. And, I really liked it a lot. And I found that, if you get to know the student a little bit, then most of the time it's not that difficult to really get them engaged, as long as you just bring some energy, bring a little bit of empathy, a little bit of engagement yourself.
A little bit of fun.
A little bit of fun, yeah. So that can be a challenge, but most, generally speaking, it's certainly not insurmountable. It's just something that you learn a little bit.
Do you have any particular student that you recall having their breakthrough moment that was really meaningful over the years?
In terms of their reading, yes. I have... Actually, there's a story that I always tell, and it's sort of also my why story, and it's from that first year. So I started in March of 2017, In May, I think, we started seeing the student who we still work with now, but it was her first time with Lindamood-Bell. She was a third grader, soon to be going into fourth grade, and she came to us as basically a non-reader. She could barely read. She maybe knew a couple words, but she was, third grader, and no confidence, none of that. And I remember one day, I worked with her a lot. I remember one day it was at pickup time, and her mom is sitting waiting for her in the lobby, and the student comes out to see her mom at the end of the day, and she brings out a book, one of our reading books. It's like a first grade level reading. And she hands it to her mom, and her mom looks at it and scrolls through some of the pages and looks at her daughter and says, "You can read that?" This sort of, almost like she didn't believe it, And her daughter goes, "Yeah." And then so she sits down next to her mom, and she's reading this book. It's this little paragraph long story, and she reads it, flawlessly. And it was just that moment where her mom's crying. Several of us are standing around, staff are in the lobby, all just everybody's just got tears in their eyes. It was a really sweet moment, and that was, I think, the first time for me, and a couple months in, where I really see that impact on the kid who's just beaming, from ear to ear, on the parent, and I see, a lot of us really just around experiencing that moment. And there's been a lot of moments like that since, but that one always stands out to me because it was, I think that was when I really knew that this was something amazing, something that I felt really good about, and that's where it became, I think, for me more than a job. I got excited about it early on when I was in the training and I found out what we were doing. It's way beyond tutoring. It's creating independence for learning for people. But that was when I really saw it happen. And this student had been working with us for only, a few weeks, probably maybe 5-6 weeks or something like that at that point, if that. Yeah, so that moment just stays with me. And I don't think I'll ever, I don't want to forget it.
That's great. We have a lot of people to talk about, and myself included, just that the value personally, the reward you get,
Yeah.
That makes it more than a 9 to 5 for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Was it a challenge for you to adapt to the having consistent language for each student at all?
I think so. At first, it's because we use so much sensory language. It's like I tell people, it's try to use the word picture or see in basically every sentence. Because we're doing all this questioning and stimulating the senses, and it takes a little while because you're used to just saying well, what do you think about this, or
how about that?
Yeah, how about that? Yeah, and those are good questions to ask, but when we really need to stimulate that imagery. So I think to really get really comfortable with the language, it took a little while, but after a certain point, after maybe a couple months, it becomes really second nature. I find myself using it in my daily life. It's not just something that I'm learning to do at work. It's it's just something that I would say to other people, well, I don't know if I picture that.
Can you irritate your roommates, your family, your friends with all that? Okay.
Exactly. And it seemed for a minute I was maybe it was invasive, why am I using this word? It's that's a work word, and no, it's not. Especially as the more as I've done this, I really get to understand what we're doing, not just here's the steps that I'm doing of this program, but really getting the big picture and what this is and how it works and why and all that stuff. It makes 100% sense. So I don't feel weird using sensory language in my daily life. It's just normal. It's just how we talk and how we think. We don't teach at least in our learning center, we don't teach content, we teach processes, which is really amazing. We read there's all these stories that we have, really interesting. A lot of them are true stories, just I'm always telling people the stories that I learned from our books, about, the invention of the potato chip and stuff like that. And I'm I got a cool story for you. And so that we read all these true things, but that's not the point. At the end of the day, I don't care if my student walks away knowing how the potato chip was invented, or about the Earl of Sandwich and how the sandwich was invented, or the great molasses spill of 1956, or the Boston. There's all these great stories that are highly entertaining, but that's not the point. The point is it's the processing. It's setting up our students, training their brains to access these functions and learn these skills and just become independent readers, global readers, independent learners, and set them up for success for, the rest of their school career and beyond, professional career, all that stuff. It's really incredible. And then, of course...
Do you work with the Academy at all?
Yeah.
Maybe we could talk to that a little bit.
Yeah. And of course, in Academy, there is content. It's the curriculum. I mean, that's when we're really taking our processes and helping our students apply it and use it in the academic setting of curriculum. And that's a pretty cool thing, too. So I think my first spring, I didn't work with Academy. We had one Academy student, and it's more training, and but I believe by the following year, I became an Academy clinician.
And so, what was that like as a clinician to have to then bring in the content?
When I worked as a clinician in the Academy, I found it was really fascinating to me, because we learn our programs and our processes that we work with students in the Learning Center, and then to take that and within the same setting, bring in the curriculum. And that's where you start seeing those, it's a direct application, to see students who, typically these are students who struggle in school, they might drown in a classroom full of 20, 30 kids, they don't get that specific attention they need, and a lot of just schools are great, but they don't necessarily know specifically how to help students with these learning challenges and things like that. So it's really amazing to actually be in that room with that student one-on-one, or even leading a group of 2 or 3 students in a class, and really helping them access that type of learning for the first time. It's amazing. I'm somebody who really likes to do a lot of different things. I like to teach the different programs. Every time I get to learn a new program or learn to do testing or whatever, I always really like that. So becoming an Academy clinician was just a whole new skill set I got to add in to what I've learned as being a clinician here. And it was just really cool. It's really awesome to see students, not only be able to read and stuff for better for the first time, but really see students be successful in a classroom setting for the first time, and gain independence in learning. A lot of our students we can be sort of a gap year for a lot of students, or a transitional. Like a lot of our students, we see them maybe 1 year in the Academy, and they get to go off back into the bigger school system and thrive. And some students, we see them more than 1 year, but eventually what we really seeing that growth in those students is amazing. And for me, it's not about the grades either. It's really just about the ability to have these tools and apply them in that sort of setting, to feel successful, to feel confident. That's really where it's at for me. But yeah, I mean, I like Academy. It's really cool to be able to do both, to work with students outside of their school, but also to be their school.
Last one. What would you say to someone who's somehow found Lindamood-Bell online and they're thinking about a job, they haven't really heard about it? What's the big takeaway that you have that's kept you here for these years?
I say just go for it. Come to a screening. Come to the screening. You get to learn a bit about the company, and one thing that I noticed right away when you just walk in the room is the culture. There's just something about it where there's an energy where you can really feel like this is something special. And I say go for it. People in the Learning Center are very communicative, very open for questions, that you can always, reach out and, ask, the whoever is running the screening or whatever, you can always, communicate with them. And I think just, it's a good thing that, you can just, there's so much support. You don't come in here and, you're interacting with 1 or 2 people in the screening maybe, but there's a whole network of people here. It's not just in the Learning Center, it's above and beyond. I mean, when you really get into it, you really start seeing how many people and how many minds are collaborating for each individual student. So it's really just something unlike anything else. And
So you're saying it's a cult? Oh, wait a minute. They cut that.
I got that. No. It really does. It really does feel like a community, though. I mean, really, which is I never really thought that I would think that about. You know, it's a pretty big company. One other thing is when I went to my screening, I was a little my one really concern when I got there is I had never heard of Lindamood-Bell until I showed up here, and it seemed really cool. The system is really awesome. It seems cool that people are nice who are talking to us, and you know, there's some videos you see, and I found out like, oh, this is a big company. There's a lot of learning centers. This is is this a really big corporation? And I'd had a sort of bad experience working for another really big company, and I was like, oh gosh, you know, is this going to be one of those things? Is someone going to walk around with a clipboard just like checking off my, you know, all my inefficiencies and it's, you know, metrics, and it's going to be a problem, and it wasn't like that at all. Fortunately, I was put at ease within a day or two of training, like, oh no, like, yes, it's a relatively big company. There's a lot of learning centers, people doing this all over the place, but the culture is so supportive. Everyone from the top down, from literally from Nancy Bell, our CEO and co-founder, all the way down to the last clinician, people are here because they want to do this. You know, it's really amazing. It'd be one of those things that feels like a vocation as opposed to just a job. And I don't know, I don't see myself being anywhere else after this. Been here for almost 6 years, and I'm thinking like, well, look what I've done in 5.5 years, you know, and I feel really good about where I am and what I do here, and I'm thinking in 5.5 more years, you know, I wish I could see it. I can imagine, I can picture it. But I love that there's still an unknown there. But I know, well, at least I strongly believe that I will be here.
So my name is Sruti Raghavan. I am the center director at Lindamood-Bell in Portland, and I have been in Portland for the last 7 years or so. I've been with the company for 15, and I moved down here from Seattle and I was the associate director there.
And so what did you do prior to Lindamood-Bell? How did you...
I was actually working as a preschool teacher, and I just didn't really feel comfortable with the philosophy of the school and how the head of school was really pushing a lot of the students to read. And I started looking for another opportunity and just found this on Craigslist.
That makes it unanimous here. Craigslist must be the the place.
Yeah, it is.
And so what was your initial thought when you came in for a screening or orientation, whatever your first
I
contact?
appreciated how much, one of the reasons why I wanted to move to Lindamood-Bell was I really appreciated how much support there was as an instructor. I was coming from being in an environment where I didn't feel like I had support. I didn't have someone I could turn to for advice on what I should be doing during the class day or developing the schedule. And coming to Lindamood-Bell as a clinician, I was able to really find the consultants to support and our leaders and our instructional leaders, and receive a lot of mentoring in delivering instruction for the students. I was actually hired to work in school partnerships after school in San Jose some schools were using their Title I funds to bring us on site and to work in small groups of students. And I really just within 3 weeks saw a group of third graders go from barely being able to sound out 4-letter words to being able to handle 3-syllable words, and just getting so excited about, you know, being the person to raise their hand to answer the question and to be able to decode and to sound these words out. And just that level of growth I saw in 3 weeks, I couldn't turn back. This was what I knew I wanted to do.
So let's talk about kind of your progression.
Mm-hmm.
And you started as a clinician.
Yeah.
And then
I started as a clinician, and then once I really realized that this is what I wanted to do, I became a mentor for a really short period of time before I became a consultant. And that summer as a consultant, I was working with students and had a really full student load and just really felt completely engulfed in instruction and seeing and supporting families and parents. And from there, I was offered a position to be the associate director in our Menlo Park Learning Center. And so I moved to Menlo Park, and I was there for a couple of years and helped to really oversee that center, helped to start a seasonal learning center that was open for a couple summers, and I would help pop over there and also support instruction in Menlo Park. And then I went up to Bellevue, and I was an associate director there. And when working in our Bellevue Center, I was would pop around to the Seattle Seasonal Center and Tacoma Seasonal Center and Bellevue and kind of help oversee all of those, all of the instruction for those 3 locations during the summer. And Portland was also one of our seasonal centers at the time. And in 2014, we had enough students to stay open and to become a satellite. And so I came down here to support that, and we're now a learning center. And so it's been really exciting to see the growth from seeing maybe 3 to 4 students at a time in the morning and in the afternoon to now like the level of families that we can support.
What does this center director do?
So a center director really does a lot of overseeing the entire learning center. We are ensuring that the students are receiving quality instruction. We're helping with the management of staff and the StarCast and ensuring that they're having they're implementing quality instruction, they are supported in their roles, that they can reach out to us when they need that extra support. And then also I do all the marketing and the sales for the Learning Center as well. And so I'm meeting with families and giving them that introduction to who we are and talking about the evaluations and helping them to enroll with Lindamood-Bell.
It's a wide spectrum of things.
It is, yeah. I do professional outreach as well. So I'm meeting with neuropsychologists or audiologists or speech paths and school support people as well to kind of share what the students are doing and how we can collaborate together too.
What's the biggest challenge of this position?
One of the challenges is really just to find the right balance at all times and to things are ever changing at Lindamood-Bell, and knowing that where your priority might be one day is going to have to shift to the next day, and being able to keep up with that fluctuation can be challenging. And at the same time, all it takes is to walk outside my office and sit down in a student session for 5 minutes, and you see the why, you see why we're doing this, and you see the students' engagement and their ability to just come alive with the instruction that we're able to provide for them. It's really rewarding. I have the unique perspective of being able to see the students kind of from a big picture, and not necessarily the instruction that's happening each hour for them, but I see their overarching gains, and I'm able to connect with parents to share those gains as well, to be able to talk about how are they seeing that explode outside of Lindamood-Bell, and being able to read street signs and being able to read the menu at a restaurant, or being able to clearly articulate what happened at school that day, which they never were able to do before. And those kinds of things are that's what brings me joy, and that's how we know what we're doing is right.
And thank you for listening. Learn more about us at lindamoodbell.com. You can also find us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. We are Lindamood-Bell.